And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago.
Donald Trump's brain is clearly falling apart, and it has been for a long time, not to say that there was any point in which Donald Trump ever sounded like a smart or articulate or thoughtful individual that would be a comical statement to make, but as of lately, it's gotten really bad, especially because Donald Trump is speaking on the issues he understands the least: tariffs, our economy more broadly, and foreign policy. And that is exactly what we saw in an Oval Office press conference with the Secretary of NATO. When Donald Trump was just kind of glitching out and saying some of the strangest things we've heard from him recently, it was incredibly bizarre, and we are going to get into all of it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now let's get into this first bizarre clip when Trump was asked about TFFs.
Thank you, Mr. President. A representative of Canada, the finance minister, are in town and will meet members of your administration during the day. Any chances that you will ban on the tariffs on aluminum and the ones that are planned for April 2nd?
No.
You are not going to change your mind?
No, look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years.
Now, I said that was a bizarre clip because I guess all clips of Trump are technically bizarre, but it's what we've come to expect from him, giving an answer that isn't true because he doesn't understand tariffs, or I guess just not entirely, because he does continue to admit that the thing he is doing is hurting the people who elected him. Just take a listen to this right here.
States, maybe our greatest state, but why should we subsidize another country for $200 billion? It costs us $200 billion a year. And again, we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We have more than they do. We don't need anything. We don't need their cars. I'd much rather make the cars here. And there's not a thing that we need. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. And we have to do this. I'm sorry. We have to do this, yes.
So this is how MAGA has been trying to frame the tariffs argument lately, that there's an aid disruption right now, that we're transitioning into a greater America when there's more manufacturing, when there's more investment into working class folks. But that's just not the case, because that runs counter to the economic agenda that Donald Trump not only presented and carried out in his first term, but the budget that the House is about to pass right now. It runs counter to anything that he's suggesting. He shipped manufacturing out of the country, gave giant tax cuts to billionaires and giant corporations. This is not someone who's going to be investing in. The working man is just a ridiculous notion. And speaking of ridiculous notions, we hear more of that right here.
They don't take our agriculture, we take their agriculture. It's like a one-way street with them. The European Union is very, very nasty. They sue our companies. Apple was forced to pay $16 billion on a case that, very much like my cases that I won. They shouldn't have been even cases, but we felt they had no case, and they ended up having an extremely favorable judge and decision. But they're suing Google, they're suing Facebook, they're suing all of these companies, and they're taking billions of dollars out of American companies, many more than the ones I just mentioned. And I guess they're using it to run Europe or something. I don't know what they're using it for, but they treat us very badly. China obviously treats us very badly. Almost everybody does, and I blame...
He just sounds like an idiot. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, MAGA wants to praise Donald Trump for being strong and being tough. In short, he tries to present himself that way. Of course, deep down, we know he has a weak man. But one thing you can't say is that he's smart. Donald Trump has never articulated a real policy thought in his life. It's just slogans and anger and yelling. And when he does articulate policy thoughts, he's talking about how he's using his narrative around policy to screw people over. Take a listen to this right here.
And I saw this morning where one of them is pretty well known, one is arguing, fighting like crazy over men being able to play in women's sports. I said, gee, I thought that was tried. I thought that was about a 95%, I think it's a 95% issue. But in a way, I want them to keep doing it because I don't think they can win a race. And I tell the Republicans, I said, don't bring that subject up because there's no election right now. But about a week before the election, bring it up because you can't lose.
She is just admitting what we knew to be true. There's been so much discussion in the postmortems about the election of whether or not Democrats talked too much about trans issues when it was Republicans who spent $100 million and put together the most concerted messaging effort possible to make sure that that was the topic, that not something Tom Harris was talking about. Aside from saying that we should protect the rights of trans people, we shouldn't let MAGA politicians attack individual high schoolers and middle schoolers in a state like West Virginia where there aren't any trans athletes, and still they're passing legislation to attack if there were. But no, they're trying to focus it on that because they don't actually have anything real to talk about except, of course, all their nonsense schemes like this right here.
And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. Maybe our greatest state.
Are you saying that the border between Canada and the United States, the longest continuous border in the world, I believe, and as someone who always talks about how important borders are, you're talking about that it doesn't exist? He just sounds so stupid. Doesn't like he just, I don't have another word for it. I'm sorry, but I have to say it because I am quite tired of any legitimacy given to any idea coming out of Donald Trump's mouth or that of anyone in his cabinet. It is insanity that we try to give any legitimacy at all to any of the ideas he puts forth. They deserve no credence. They deserve no time. They deserve to be called dumb because that's what he is, and that's what he continues to sound like right here.
Go ahead, please.
Leaders from Russia and Iran are heading to Beijing tomorrow to discuss nuclear programs. What do you hope to get out of that?
Well, maybe they're going to talk about non-nuclear programs. Maybe they're going to be talking about the de-escalation of nuclear weapons. Because, I was talking about that with President Putin very strongly. And we could have done something had that election not been rigged. We would have had something. I think I would have made a deal with Putin on de-escalation, denuclearization, as they say. But we would have de-escalated nuclear weapons because the power.
I can't do this. Just like they're non-answers. They don't even make sense. You can clearly see that he's trying to rack his brain for something, but he just can't find it. Like, these aren't jokes. Sure, he likes to screw around when he doesn't have anything real to say, but this is truly just a DED individual who's rapidly losing it, and that's why he continues to hone in on the issues he loves that he doesn't understand, like talking about Los Angeles right here.
I broke into Los Angeles. Can you believe it? I had a break-in. I invaded Los Angeles, and we opened up the water, and the water is now flowing down. They have so much water, they don't know what to do. They were sending it out to the Pacific for environmental reasons. Okay, can you believe it? And in the meantime, they lost 25,000 houses. They lost, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. But
there's a really interesting phenomenon that people who don't know anything about a topic or aren't equipped to talk about it quite often overestimate their ability. So if you don't know something about a topic, you're more likely to overestimate how much you would know or how successful you'd be at a given task. And people who do have expertise usually underestimate themselves, right? DDTR is a perfect example of that. He is who says, I'm the greatest at everything. I'm so fantastic. I'm the best in every way. And it's that's what the LA water stuff is. The prime example, literally. No idea what he's talking about. And yet he wants to talk about it all the time. Also wants to talk about this issue.
we've been discussing with Ukraine land and pieces of land that would be kept and lost and all of the other elements of a final agreement. There's a power plant involved, a very big power plant involved. Who's going to get the power plant and who's going to get this and that? And so, it's not an easy process. But phase one is the ceasefire. A lot of the individual subjects have been discussed, though. We've been discussing concepts of land because you don't want to waste time with a ceasefire if it's not going to mean anything. So we're saying, look, this is what you can get. This is what you can't get. They discussed NATO and being in NATO, and everybody knows what the answer to that is. They've known that answer for 40 years, in all fairness. So a lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed.
Yes, Donald Trump's continuous attacks on our ally, and of course he's not the only one attacking Ukraine lately. We see a lot more of that from his co-president and Elon Musk, while he's not hawking his crappy cars on the White House lawn. He's going after U.S. senators for defending our allies, and I think I'm talking about Mark Kelly, who I want to hear from right here.
When you got back from Ukraine, you posted about your trip, an incredibly lengthy thread that everyone should read, I think, just of what it was like on the ground. Yeah. Elon Musk responded by calling you a traitor.
He did. What? Well, that was
a combat veteran.
That was kind of my reaction when I was flying over Iraq, getting shot at, or flying in the space shuttle. Never once for a second did I think somewhere down the road somebody's going to call me a traitor. But Caitlin, this isn't really about me, and what I'm really
not just somebody.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a guy with a lot of power, a lot of influence over this government. I think it says a lot about him. It says much more about him than it does about me. But what really concerns me is veterans that he is firing without cause from the government. These are public servants. I had a disabled veteran in my office the other day that had recently received an excellent performance report, and 3 weeks later, Elon Musk fires him through an email because of poor performance. That's wrong. That's not fair. Fired him without cause. It has ruined his life. And there are 6,000 veterans just like him.
We also saw Todd Young and Lindsey Graham pushed back on what Elon Musk had to say, calling you a traitor. Are you surprised that you haven't heard from more Senate Republicans, more of your colleagues?
I've heard from them in the Armed Services Committee in the ante room today.
What did they say to you?
Well, we're kind of joking about it. People are. I got to be careful what I say, in public about what my Republican colleagues say, but. We were talking about what he said about me, and it would have been interesting for you to watch if you were in there.
Why? Because they were essentially, without naming them.
We get along very well.
Them,
I've got very good relationships with my Republican colleagues, and I would say they don't like this kind of behavior.
The Senate Republicans don't like Elon Musk calling you a traitor.
There are a number of them that came up to me to talk to me about this. And yeah, of course, they're not happy with this.
But they didn't say anything.
I mean, this guy has a very powerful job in the United States government. He's got tremendous influence. After the president, I don't think there's somebody with more influence right now over the federal government than Elon Musk. And he's wasting his time on Twitter, insulting people, insulting veterans, calling me a traitor, calling other people's names. Is this a serious person? I don't think he is. So why do you give him this influence?
Mark Kelly has courage. Mark Kelly is a patriot. Elon Musk is not from here and wants to steal billions of your tax dollars every day. So who's the real trade? I think then it's Elon. I think that's pretty easy to say. And it's what we're going to continue to say on the show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.